You ever have that moment where you talk about something with someone in person, then all of a sudden you start getting ads on various social media apps for that very thing? Creepy, right? Well, we're about to take that to the extreme with a movie that will make you want to leave every social app you have except MySpace. Tom is still waiting for you at MySpace. That's because we're here to prove to you that 2017's The Circle is not that bad. Welcome to this edition of It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies. Now, normally when we talk about, these movies, we've had romance comedies, we've had superhero flicks, we've had sci-fi, we've had a gamut, but now we're dipping into almost social commentary drama because we're talking 2017's The Circle. And here to join me on the episode is the cutest circler of all, my beautiful wife, Carrie. Carrie, how are you doing today?
Aw, I'm doing well, thank you. And I have to say, I love being within your circle. Now I'm picturing,
Exactly. Sharing is caring. Sharing is caring. Now,
Robert De Niro.
Right.
There's a circle of trust.
Oh, God.
That's a whole other movie.
That is that. I don't even know if that movie qualifies.
We should check it.
We should definitely double check that one. So in the interest of full disclosure here, in transparency, if you will, when we decided to pick this the film for this week, we basically said, okay, we'll pick an actor and we'll kind of go down their filmography and see what movies are lowly rated. And of course, Tom Hanks came up, and this movie is like, wow, this is one of his most lowly rated films. And then I'm like, oh, hey. And there's Hermione in this, as well as Amy Pond and Finn from Star Wars. So, I mean, this is it's a decent cast. But when you saw that, A, it's a Tom Hanks film that's this low rated, but B, Emma Watson is also in it. You're a resident Potterhead. How much of this was a surprise to you?
Well, I mean, for the record, did I not say Tom Hanks has never been in a low-rated movie?
That's pretty much how this discussion started, yeah.
That was the disclaimer. That was the beginning of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had no idea that this movie existed until yesterday.
You and everybody else, I think.
Although I have been seeing recently, since the 20th anniversary and Return to Hogwarts, there were a lot of press photos for this at the time, or they seem to be resurfacing now for whatever reason on the internet. But you know what? I love that there was life after Harry Potter for Emma Watson. I want to see all of the actors thrive, and it was so exciting to see Daniel Radcliffe. He's really resurfacing now, and he's coming back
in the
strong.
Lost City, yeah.
Coming back strong and as Weird Al, so that'll be exciting.
That's going to be an interesting one. I'm curious how that one's going to end up being rated. But we're here to talk about The Circle.
Yes.
And before we do, it is time to take this 2017 film and trailerize it. Your every move is being watched. Your every personal interaction scrutinized. Your every waking moment fodder for the faceless masses. Emma Watson stars in a movie that would make George Orwell crap his pants 1,984 times. Enter The Circle, a highly advanced, highly sophisticated service provider that makes you wonder who they have pictures of to be able to get away with what they do. The answer? Everybody. The Circle has pictures of everybody, and everybody let them do it. It's the cinematic equivalent of Google's wet dream. Emma Watson, Tom Hanks, Karen Gillan, and John Boyega star in The Circle. Rated PG-13. Google's wet dream.
I think I'm going to cancel all of my social media accounts right now.
Just take your phone, throw it in the water, run the other direction. That's pretty much what this is. Okay, so this film stars Emma Watson, Tom Hanks, Karen Gillan, John Boyega, Glenn Headley, Bill Paxton, and Patton Oswalt. It almost, however, starred Alicia Vikander. You'll probably remember her best from Ex Machina and the reboot of Tomb Raider. Now, it was interesting. Like, when this film came up, as far as, them wanting Alicia Vikander, like, she was first choice for this. She had 3 films to choose from. There was another film, and then Jason Bourne. She chose Jason Bourne. Emma Watson was the second choice for this role for May. It's based on the book written by David Eggers, which was written in 2013. In 2021, he actually released a sequel to the book called The Every. The premise of that book is what happens when the Circle merges with a company called The Jungle, and they were like an e-commerce company, which, basically discount Amazon at that point. But the name Dave Eggers sounds familiar. It's probably because he also wrote the book A Hologram for the King, which was also turned into a movie also starring Tom Hanks. He also wrote the screenplay for the film adaptation of Where the Wild Things Are, and I'm just going to stare you down for this one because he also wrote the screenplay for Away We Go. Now, to explain my death glare that I'm giving my wife at this current time, we have often talked about the days of 7 movies for 7 days. One time, Carrie decided to pick Away We Go. It was one of the only times we have ever stopped a movie midway through, and then basically I looked at her and said, "You owe me."
I feel your judgment right now.
I would rather watch Soul Plane 15,000 times than watch Away We Go.
You hear that, friends? It's been recorded.
It has been.
It's on record now.
If the choice
Soul Plane.
If the choice is actually riding on Soul Plane or watching Away We Go, put me in the seat between Snoop Dogg and Tom Arnold and get flying, because that's what's going to happen. I may still carry the wounds of that one. I'm not going to lie.
He does sound a little bitter, doesn't he?
This was directed by James Ponsoldt, who also directed the movie The End of the Tour. It's funny that you mentioned that you didn't even know that this film existed, because I was kind of the same way. It's like one of those, I saw the poster for it occasionally on like streaming services, and that's about it. But it had a budget of $18 million. Domestically, it grossed $20 million, and worldwide grossed $40 million. So it made its money back. When it debuted on the weekend of April 28th, 2017, it debuted at number 5. Behind number 1 that week was The Fate of the Furious in its 3rd week, so I kind of get that. Also debuting that week, and number 2 was How to Be a Latin Lover. That was number 2. Number 3 was, and I really hope I get this right, Bahubali 2, The Conclusion. That's what was coming out in April. Number 4 in its 5th week was The Boss Baby. But it debuted just ahead of the movie that was in its 7th week at number 6, also starring Emma Watson, Beauty and the Beast. So you literally had back-to-back Emma Watson movies in the top 10 of the box office that week. But the critics, however, weren't exactly kind to this one, which is surprising when you see the cast, because overall on Metacritic, it has a Metascore of 43, fair enough, but then you go over to Rotten Tomatoes. The audience score for this film is 21%. The tomatometer is 16%. This is, without a doubt, one of Tom Hanks's least or lowest reviewed films. Now, when you hear 16%, are you as shocked as I am at just how low that is?
I do feel that's harsh. Yet I think I might agree more with the audience score, and we'll get to the reasons why later, but I think it could have been so much better than it was.
As any film could be.
For reasons, yeah.
In reality, I don't think there's any film out there that ever actually deserves a 100% film or a 100% critic score. Like, I don't think there is such a thing as the perfect film.
I just don't think that's possible because people, right?
Right.
Like, I don't think you will ever please the masses.
No.
And sometimes the M is silent.
I like that. Please the masses, and on the back of the shirt, have it say the M is silent. Yes, exactly. Okay, so let's get to the breakdown of this film. We're going to start with the unheralded star of the movie here, Emma Watson as May. Now, let's be honest. For at least the next little while, right? Anytime Emma Watson is in a film, it's going to get comparisons. Whoever she's playing, she's going to get comparisons to Hermione Granger from Harry Potter, which I find funny because
I actually disagree with that. I'm gonna straight up, right off the cuff, even though I did fall into that trap, and one of the scenes I was like, "Oh, Hermione, don't cry."
Don't cry for me, Hermione Granger.
However, you know what? Like I said, I love seeing life after Hogwarts. I love seeing these kids that truly, like, this was their first gig. And little did they know when they auditioned for the first Harry Potter that it would become a life force of its own. And even now, 20 plus years later, it's still so iconic.
Huge. Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, think about the pressure to find yourself or to even break away from that expectation that's placed on you. And you know what? I truly loved Emma Watson in this movie as May. Like, I was really fighting myself to break away from the expectations of Hermione grows up, right? Like, I was really, really trying, and I think that she did a brilliant job with it.
I just think it's an interesting character comparison because when you take a look at the character of Hermione Granger, who is arguably the most competent wizard at Hogwarts, literally.
Harry would have been dead 10 times over
exactly.
in his first year.
If it wasn't for Hermione Granger, Harry's dead, Ron's dead, everyone's dead. Like, seriously, except for Hermione Granger. And then they're going to turn around and basically say, "Oh, she burned Hogwarts down." No. Just no. No, she was the most confident, the strongest, the literally they should have basically based it around her. She was the one that basically saved the day every single time. This time, however, she's the one with all the ideas, but all the ideas seem to go way, way south. It's almost like it's, there's enthusiasm to May. There's an exuberance to May. And I kind of get it too, because when you take a look at the situation of the character of May, at home, she has her dad who's dealing with MS, her mom who's doing her best to help her father with MS. It's clearly a very loving household, but it's a household that, all the money basically goes to healthcare and doing what they can. She's driving a rundown, beat down car. There's, that breaks down in the middle of nowhere, which I'll admit, when the car broke down in the beginning of the film, I'm like, I'm sure there's a spell for that. But it's understandable that May wants more out of life than what is continuously surrounding her. So the chance to go to a place like the Circle where, on the surface, it does seem like a very, warm, embracing, exciting opportunity for someone at the beginning of their career, so long as you quote unquote drink the corporate Kool-Aid. And I'm sure anyone who's worked in a large corporate environment has sat there and said, I've been to some of those meetings. Like, it's, it happens. It does happen. But, her enthusiasm for the company that basically is there, or that she's at, it makes sense. Like, anyone in that environment's going to get excited if they have this positive environment around them. but unfortunately, of course, she gets caught up in her enthusiasm, starts making bad choices. But I mean, I don't even know why Alicia Vikander was the first choice, because there's something about Emma Watson's portrayal of May that I cannot see anyone else in this role. Her enthusiasm for the Circle really shines through in this. I think she's the perfect actress for this role.
What I liked about her is I actually saw it differently, and I think that pensive, kind of almost standoffish. I think that kind of standoffish approach when she first arrived, where, she was really almost kind of politely skeptical or cynical about the whole thing. I mean, in the beginning, right? I think she almost kind of enjoyed having that balance of going to this never land of the Circle, and everyone's happy and friendly and kind of knows everything about you, and everyone's welcoming and saying, oh, hi, how was your last kayak trip or whatever, right? And then going home to where she can kind of be more herself, and have her more private life. Like,
I will say, and it's fascinating to watch this movie on the other side of a pandemic, because for the last 2.5 years, a lot of people have had to pivot from, a work environment to all of a sudden you're working from home and you're very isolated. And when you watch a movie like The Circle, you can very easily see why people in their careers, if they're happy with their careers, why they would miss the workplace, why they would miss that kind of camaraderie. Although I will admit, there's the scene after she goes home for the weekend and does her kayaking thing, where her coworkers are like, you didn't set up your socials and we didn't know this and this, and I'm like, oh my god, it's a cult. She's joined a cult.
It is so interesting that you draw that parallel from the post-COVID lockdowns, because when I was first watching this movie, I thought, for 2017, this is almost kind of prolific.
Especially when you realize the book was written in 2013.
Right, which is almost, incredibly eerie, right? In 2013, we were all in MySpace, being friends with Tom.
Oh, no, MySpace was way earlier
was
than
it
that.
Not?
MySpace seems so far away. Like I'm sure the Tom from MySpace is basically the human equivalent right now of that John Travolta meme where he's just kind of going, looking around like from Pulp Fiction.
Oh, what year is it today anyway?
Pretty much. But I don't think this film would be anywhere as good as it is if Alicia Vikander was in it. And that's nothing against Alicia Vikander. I just don't know, and I haven't seen her in a role that would lead me to believe that she would bring that kind of enthusiasm. I think Alicia Vikander might bring a more skeptical look to May and May's approach to the Circle. But I think once May gets, the ball gets rolling and May starts to feel like she's being heard and starts to feel like she's being a part of it, and, walking around the campus and talking to basically everyone watching her feed kind of thing. It's like, that's where Emma Watson shines. Just the joy and the enthusiasm that she brings to this role. Yeah.
For me, it was the confidence where she was able to, she literally went from, sitting almost in the back row and slinking down in her chair and hoping to not be noticed, to absolutely owning the stage and the presentation to the, the Circle at large. Yeah, she is incredibly talented. And like I said, she just has that confidence that was just shining through.
Yeah. We probably should have said at the beginning of the show that we're going to spoil the crap out of this film, but you can go watch it over on Tubi.
If you haven't seen it, please do watch it. Because
absolutely.
It's almost kind of, again, it's eye-opening. And yeah, it really makes you think, you have a conversation and then you get a pop-up of, for travel plans, and you had just talked about, that time you went to, wherever, and it's like, ooh, what?
Right.
Big Brother is watching.
That would be like if I sat there and said, I like this picture that's set in Montana. Next thing you know, we have travel ads for Montana showing up on every single suggested ad. It's like, yeah, Google is listening. Google is listening.
P.S. Facebook gods, I really don't like Stitch. So can you stop with the like Lilo and Stitch memes?
Okay, you have to also understand, and this is nothing against the movie Lilo and Stitch, but we went to, what was it, Disney one year?
Bad experience.
Yeah, and went on like the Stitch ride kind of thing, and they had this spray that shot out. It was like one of those like 4D experiences, and we smelt like hot garbage for the next 2 days.
What was that rancid odor anyway? It was like bad hot dogs or something. I don't know what the heck.
It smelled like if a hot dog threw up on another hot dog, and then someone ate it and then threw the entire thing up, and you're just like kind of thing.
I think they actually shut that ride down, repurposed it, and good on them.
That spray, yeah.
Because oh my god,
for days you couldn't wash it out of your hair. It was bad. It was bad.
Yeah, and like people, around you are just kind of like, ugh, like why?
Damn Canadians won't. You got showers up there? We do. They don't work against this smell. Thanks, Lilo and Stitch ride. Let's move on to the head of the circle, Tom Hanks. This was fascinating, right? Because when you think about a corporation like this, the obvious comparisons are going to be people like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, stuff like that, right? And you need someone who's going to be able to portray a likability, an encouragement. So someone who people are going to want to willingly follow. And when you look at Tom Hanks, we're talking about a guy who portrayed Mr. Rogers in a film, a biopic film. He's the perfect guy for it. Because I think anyone else, you might have this, he's so sinister feel to it. But like when you watch Tom Hanks, as Eamon Bailey, walking around the stage and getting everyone to laugh and getting people excited and motivating them and really getting them on board with what the circle is doing, regardless of the moral implications of what the circle is doing. Like no one questions him because they're so excited because he brings that enthusiasm out of them. It makes sense why May was willing to go down that road.
He was so damn likable. And even at the end of it, like I still think there was his intentions were good, that he is genuinely a good, like positive gentleman. Like, I mean, what broke my heart was the revelation of his son and almost kind of his motivation for doing and providing the circle and doing what he does.
But of course, that's the public front, right? Like that's, my son has cerebral palsy, and this is why we're creating this transparency and getting people to share their experiences, so people who can't have those experiences can share. Like that is a very altruistic, motive. The problem is, there's the old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I think the circle is almost the embodiment of that.
Well, hang on now. Isn't that kind of at the core what Facebook is all about? Is like, you share your travel stories or, concert pictures or whatever for those who maybe didn't attend, or if you go to like something wonderful, right?
Yeah.
And you share all these stories, and really, doesn't all of our lives look, shiny and fantastic on Facebook? But then on the other side of it, if you share anything like really deep and meaningful and profound, it's almost kind of like, oh, well, so-and-so wants attention, right? There's like,
yeah.
like social media itself can be so either sparkly, shiny, new, or really, really damning.
Yeah.
And almost kind of like there's a dark side of it as well, right? It's like it can go from one extreme to another, and really, everyone is watching.
Yeah.
And the internet is forever.
And you really, I mean, you see that more in May's character development. Like, for a while, everything is insta happy, right? Until it's not. But, and you see both sides of that with this film. Like, social media can be used for good. It can be used to help people communicate. It can be used to keep people together, but it can also be used as a wedge between everything. And like, I mean, the term doom scrolling is there for a reason, right? But I mean, the thing with this and with Tom Hanks's portrayal of Eamon Bailey is, here's a guy who, when you take a look at the reasoning behind certain things, you can sit there and justify their developments and their integration into all aspects of everyday life to make things more streamlined in life and to make things easier. And that's a noble goal to kind of get behind. But as a private social company, the way to do it, that therein lies the question and the moral implications. But to the same token as well, you also have Patton Oswalt as his COO, and he's clearly more the the guy that has to deal with the politicians and grease the palms and pave the way and do all the dirty work in the background, while Eamon Bailey is dancing around on stage and getting everyone hype. It was actually a really good 1-2 punch with Tom and Patton Oswalt. And I know when he came on the screen and you're like, oh, hey, it's him, right? Because we're so used to him being in a comedic role. This is not a comedic role for Patton Oswalt. And I think he actually nailed it.
Oh, he did. And he was so, like, I saw it differently. I literally saw his character as being like the evil mastermind, and like he was really evil to a core. Whereas I saw the heart in Tom Hanks's character. He played it so damn well. If he really was the evil mastermind. So
the thing too is that, I mean, Patton, with you need to have a good cop, bad cop, right? And that's really what you had with Tom Hanks and Patton Oswalt. Eamon Bailey is definitely the good cop, the one that gets everyone on board. And Patton Oswalt, he's the one that has to deal with all the politicians and the one that has to, like, there was a leak that got a senator under investigation, and then they're going to put their own person in who's like fully on board with the circle. Like, the amount of money that probably goes into a company like the Circle from various aspects of government, because the Circle wants influence, politicians want access. Like, there's clearly a behind the scenes back and forth. To this film's discredit, however, none of that is really revealed, right? It's just all of a sudden, Circle bad. Here's all their information.
Yeah, it was very disjointed. It was almost kind of like, and yet I will say that while I was watching it, I'm like, this is a great idea, but almost kind of presented, it's boring. It's plotting. It takes too long to get, and yet at the end of it, I'm like, there is so much more that they could have done. Mm-hmm. And I really kind of think a lot of time was wasted almost in the build, that it kind of almost missed a few opportunities.
I mean, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, like, I've got that a little bit further down the list, but let's get to that right now, because it seems like the perfect time to talk about this, because there's a lot of character development aside from May, because I think May's arc really kind of comes into fruition through this. But I mean, The Circle is a 409-page book, and we all know that when converting a book from page to screen, certain aspects and certain side plots and whatnot are going to be left on the cutting room floor to get it into that, cinema approved around 2-hour time limit. And this film is an hour 50. I mean, we don't see the decline of Annie. We aren't given enough reason to understand May's motivation into revealing, the inner workings of. We just have suspicions. John Boyega's character of Ty is kind of glossed over, although I'm sure there's more. This book needed to be turned into a series rather than a movie, I think.
Yes, very much, very, very much. Because, like I said, it was very much a movie circled around the character of May,
Yeah.
and all the other characters were almost kind of like in the background, and it really did need more. It needed more stories. It almost kind of needed, whenever they show the person behind the text or behind the email, like almost to kind of see that there are other people outside of the circle itself, kind of off campus, the ones who are sending all of those constant tweets and texts. I don't know, like it needed something else visually.
It did.
And it really missed the mark on that.
You could sit there and say, like, this film kind of took from other different films. The two comparisons that came to my mind, as far as at least comparables go, was at first I'm like, okay, it's a little bit of Antitrust, the movie that starred Ryan Phillippe and Tim Robbins, Rachel Lee Cook, and Claire Forlani. But it also brought to mind The Truman Show, especially when May goes, quote unquote, fully transparent and starts broadcasting her life for everyone at the circle and, people who are following along. Like, there are these comparables and there are these things that you could take a look at and go, okay, well, I see where this and this came from. But I think the other characters really needed to be fleshed out. It handled Emma Watson's May very well. And again, Tom Hanks is just an absolute gem, so him as Eamon Bailey makes sense. But when it came to Karen Gillan, who played Annie, May's best friend, I mean, first things first, we have to laugh here, because this podcast is less than 50 episodes in. And already we have our second episode where we're talking about a movie where Karen Gillan and Beck appear in the same damn film. The Bubble being the other one, of course. But I loved the pairing between Karen Gillan and Emma Watson. Like, the two of them at the beginning of the film, like, it just felt like the greatest friendship. And I don't know if they're friends off camera kind of thing, but the two of them together were just a delight.
Oh, absolutely. And I really loved, I think actually I loved even more Karen Gillan's, she was so incredibly perfect for the circle and to be the one showing May around. She just had that energy and that bubbly, like, and yoga over here, and this is the band, and like this is where we, I don't know, do an outdoor meeting or whatever. Like, she was just so into it. You could almost kind of see, and I'm curious, I now want to read the book because I want to see if maybe she had the same experiences that May had. Maybe she was like targeted as, the face of the circle, or you could almost kind of see that her fate would have been the same as May's if May didn't show up.
Well, as I was doing a little bit of research onto the book, in the book itself, like, Annie becomes jealous of May and her meteoric rise. So she agrees to go fully transparent as well. But then her transparency reveals things in Annie's past and her family that basically put her on the downslope kind of thing. That's not touched upon at all here.
News to me. And I do want to see, like, I want to know more about her character, because, I mean, even, her decline and her turn towards drugs and, her eventual departure, from the circle. It was almost kind of like it happened so quickly, or it was kind of like because you're so indebted into, you're so, involved. Yeah. You're so incredibly involved into May's life that it's almost kind of like, oh yeah, Annie?
Yeah.
Oh, you're still there? Okay.
And that's the thing, like Annie's character at the beginning of the film, she's in the quote unquote the group of 40, right? Which is like the inner circle, if you will, which I'm pretty sure they would probably call it the inner circle, because it is the circle. So she's right up there. She herself is meteoric rise, and Annie almost feels at first like the cautionary tale for what May could, the road that could go down. And you see snippets of Annie like constantly on the go, constantly making, jokes about, oh, I got about an hour of sleep on the plane, couple of pills, good to go. A little bit of Soylent here and there. Like it's, you can see someone burning themselves out trying to keep up with a fast-paced company like that, and then when you see, the person you got into the company do a meteoric rise kind of thing, like you can understand Annie's jealousy, but it really was glossed over to focus on May, which is a shame because A, you've got Karen Gillan, who is a phenomenal actress. B, expanding upon Annie's story creates the cautionary tale for May. And I mean, like, we see May still really concerned about Annie, right? There's nothing about May's concern for her friends that makes her unlikable or anything, or shows her going down a bad path, right? If May felt less concerned about Annie's condition, then May becomes, is clearly on the wrong path. But May is constantly like, she's worried about Annie when she sees Annie kind of, keeping to herself. Like, May's a good person. Annie's a good person, but just on the wrong path, right? So it's just, I wish they had flushed out Annie's story more. But again, the movie's already an hour 50, so what do you cut out to expand on everybody else? There's the question. This is why I think the series idea would be better, and if they ever revisited this book and created it into a series, I think it would be phenomenal. I would still want to keep most of the cast. There's one person I would recast, but it's not Karen Gillan, and it's not John Boyega either. Like, here's John Boyega, like literally, as Force Awakens has, dominated the everything and all that. And I like him as Ty, right? I like him as the skeptical guy. He's too, he knows too much for the circle to let him go. He's clearly, leveraged his knowledge into a way that the circle is literally going to pay him and keep him happy so he doesn't burst the bubble. But he's also surrounded by, two really enthusiastic guppies. Guppies, of course, being the circle's term for new hires kind of thing. Like he sees everyone drinking the Kool-Aid and he ain't drinking none of it. Like, what was your take on John Boyega?
Oh my God, he was so good. Now, maybe I missed something, but how exactly did he have all of the knowledge?
So
was he there from the beginning?
Ty's character was the guy who created True You, which is like the social media aspect of the circle. So like if basically imagine if you worked at Facebook, right? And you were the guy that came up with the idea of Facebook, but Mark Zuckerberg took it to that next level. You're the guy with the code and the ideas and all that, and you know everything that goes on behind the scenes, so they keep him happy so he doesn't go off and do other things. Right. Ty is too important. John Boyega plays it well because yeah, he's walking around and he sees everything at what it is and not just at the surface level that everyone else sees it. He knows what Eamon Bailey is capable of, but he also knows that there's nothing he can really do to stop him by himself kind of thing. Clearly he's, not in the market of, revealing everything at this point, which it just seemed at the end, and I will give everyone this. It seemed at the end a too convenient exit from the film. The whole solution May's like, I'm going to call up Ty and Ty's going to go into the servers and get everything and we're going to release everything and everything is good. No, it's not. Clearly not, because there's a sequel to the book. But, it's just, I like John Boyega. But again, here was a character I needed to see more fleshed out.
It was almost kind of a dangerous choice for him to have trusted May because of her rise through the company,
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I mean, it had to happen that way because it was kind of like, okay, May truly knows too much. And I think that was her power, right?
I mean, there's that one scene where Boyega Ty is trying to convince May that the circle is not what it appears to be. It's not as good or as altruistic as Bailey makes it out to be. And May's like, well, why? They've got me on a health plan. They got my parents on a health plan. Like they are doing good things. And a company like the Circle, yeah, they're going to do good things. You just don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. But unfortunately, that whole behind the curtain networking and machinations weren't even shown.
Exactly. And that's what was missing, right? Because at the end of it, I'm like, okay, so emails are going to be shared.
Oh,
what emails?
Right? all we see is Tom Hanks turn to Patton Oswalt and go, and that's it. Like, why? What's in there? Right? The only inkling of a thing we have is that the one senator had something leaked or something like that, and Annie talked to Patton Oswalt's character about it, and then all of a sudden Annie, looks like she's been through the ringer, 50 million times, and has to run away to Scotland. Like
again, we needed to see more about what is outside of the Circle.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what impact does the Circle and this empire really have on the outside world? There was so much missing. Yet, I mean, it was still an enjoyable hour 50. It's just, I think
it needed to be more.
They could have put more. They could have put less May. I mean, a lot of her story arc could have been escalated, where they escalated Annie's story, right? I think a little bit more Annie, a little bit less May, and definitely more
Ty
impact information.
Yeah, and more behind the scenes of Bailey and Patton Oswalt's character. Like, we needed to know more about the Circle and why the Circle was getting the access they were doing. Like, we literally have this thing of like, May stands up in a meeting and pontificates, works through the idea of like, well, let's get everyone on the Circle to do the everything, and then we can have, everyone involved. And next thing you know, 28 countries have signed in. We don't know the backroom dealings. The level of which they portray this, the company of the Circle it does feel like an altruistic company, even though something's going on in the background, but really, do the means justify the ends? And the way the company is portrayed in the film, I would say yes, the company, the means do justify the ends. It's only if you see them doing like dirty backroom dealings, and no one suffers except for Annie. And for the surface level that they put her at, it just feels like she's burnt herself out, and she's like Elizabeth Berkley in Saved by the Bell on Uppers going, I'm so excited. Like, that's literally what you've got out of that. Let's talk about May's parents for a second here, as played by Glenn Heady and Bill Paxton. Really sweet together. Really, really sweet together. And you can see just how happy May is when the Circle puts them on the same health plan and whatnot. Like just tugging at the heartstrings for both of them.
Very much. I mean, you can see her motivation to take care of her parents as well as she can. And I think in the beginning, this job opportunity was just that. She realized that she'd at some point have to, and that's where the turnaround, she went into it very skeptical and very pensive and standoffish, not wanting to overshare, wanting to keep certain activities of her life, like her kayaking. That was her safe space. That was her escape from her home life.
Yeah.
Right? With the stillness of the water and
That was her disconnect.
Her disconnect, exactly. It was her tranquility, right? And then she gets so involved in this company, and as you say, drinks the Kool-Aid, and but her intentions are still good. It's still to take care of her parents and to really make a difference in the world. I think she really wanted to believe that their intentions were good as a company. Yeah.
It's tough, right? Especially when you realize that both of those actors have both passed away, and if memory serves, they both passed away the year this film was released. Bill Paxton's frailty in this, like, it's just so heartbreaking to watch, and you see like the pride in the couple too. Like you can imagine a couple going through one person having a very debilitating condition, and the lack of hope, knowing how much healthcare costs for something like that, the gaining of hope when a company steps in to help out, and then the lack of hope again when you realize what comes with that. That was like the one point where it's like, okay, May, if you haven't figured out that every silver lining has a gray cloud and not the other way around, but that didn't happen. It was interesting because she talked to her parents on the phone after the incident, if you will, and I'm just going to let you guys watch that. But after she gets off the phone and her parents are like, we need our privacy, you hear someone in the background going, "You're changing the world, May," and that can be intoxicating to someone who feels like they are doing good. Like, to have, you hear the term toxic positivity, and the circle kind of is that a little bit, where everyone's like, we're going to do great, we're changing the world. And yeah, we've said you drink the Kool-Aid a few times in this episode, but yeah, she drank the Kool-Aid, chugged it down, only to find out there's a tracker in it, kind of thing. But yeah, like, it's, there's so much to it, but I do think that Glenn Headley and Bill Paxton were phenomenal in this. I did mention earlier that there is one person I would change, and that was Mercer, as played by Eller Coltrane. And I don't know if it's his performance in this or just the glazing over, but I mean, like, you can see that Mercer likes May, kind of thing, but you don't really see why May would like Mercer. Or if it's like, he has pined for her for forever, and to her he's just a friend. Like, it just, the relationship between the two seemed, surface level kind of thing. So while it may have been a shock, again, spoilers, while it may be a shock when Mercer dies, as an unfortunate result of May's idea of a part of the circle kind of thing, you're like, okay, well, but the thing is, he was mad at her to begin with. It's just so disconnected. Like, the passage of time really does play with the feelings of the characters. I mean, how was Mercer to you? Like, he seemed ineffectual to me.
I agree to an extent. I don't know if I would recast the character, but I think I would have changed the dynamic of their relationship. And I think I would have put more love there, And you're right, it just kind of seemed like he was just a friend. Like,
Mercer felt more like a brother to May,
yeah,
than a friend / hopeful potential romantic kind of thing.
And I wonder why they chose to go that angle.
I mean,
I actually thought there would be more of a budding relationship within the circle.
Oh, between her and Ty, maybe, yeah. And you kind of got that feeling, right? Like, she all of a sudden strikes up a conversation with him, not knowing who he is, kind of thing. Because again, she's excited to be there, caught up in the everything. Here's this, guy kind of standing on his own, and it seems pretty cool. And then they get talking again, and they talk like normal people. Like, there's the scene at the party where May's talking to the one person who's like talking about putting chips in kids' bones or whatever. And that just kind of like, yeah, I'm going to go over there and talk to a normal human being that's, not talking about low jacking kids. And then Ty's almost like the grounded reality that she needs. It felt that was more of a connection there with Mercer, and I think it was the scene where he confronts her about putting the picture up, and he starts to get death threats because people are accusing him of killing deer in making these antler chandeliers, which just look like they come out of a horror movie. I'm not gonna lie on that one, but his reaction to that, like, this is something that he does as a creative, for lack of a better term, Etsy type outlet, and she effectively killed that unintentionally. But his reaction to it, like, I'd be pissed, and not necessarily at her, but at everything around. Like, he never lashes out at anyone around the circle, and really it's because of the circle's the audience, if you will, which is why he's getting these death threats. Like, I'd be pissed at everyone who pulls out a camera phone and starts filming me.
Yeah, that part was really hard to watch, how complete strangers can turn against someone because of a post or a tweet. But when you think about it, that's Twitter. That's
God, yes.
That's the environment we live in these days.
You see someone post a video of someone doing something bad, and then next thing you know, you've got like the Twitterati that are all out saying, "Oh, let's find this person, let's drag them down." Like, you get this mentality, this mob mentality, and I think that part was actually played up really well, especially in the True Search thing or whatever it is, where they're finding the fugitive from justice, and in that sense it kind of works, right? There's your altruistic sense in finding these killers and fugitives from the law, and getting them locked up at where they should be. But what about the people who don't want to be found? What about the people who don't want to be on the network and in the social eye kind of thing because maybe they've been burned or whatever the case may be? Like, Mercer makes sense in that he's, cottage in the woods, right? Like,
I've said it before,
yeah, like cottage in the woods.
Cottage in the woods.
Safest place to be.
Like,
don't bring a phone, just bring books. Books are better. Books are better. Okay, Twitter has spoken out about this one here. The On Second Watch podcast chimed in with, I feel really weird talking about, Twitter has spoken on this one.
Ironically, and over to Twitter.
The On Second Watch podcast chimed in with, I thought it had some interesting commentary about social media and concepts. Completely agree, but it kind of fell apart for me. And again, I wonder if this was a series and we got to know more about the circle and Annie and Ty and the relationships between everybody and the workings of the circle, it would work much better. And then Shano Bright from Sports Guy Shano on Twitter, I saw this in theaters and it was so drab and boring. OMG, I was expecting so much more. And I think that's probably where the critics are coming at from this one here. Thank you both, Sean and the On Second Watch podcast, for that.
Very much agreed. I think it's almost, again, social commentary. Mm-hmm. And if anything, I mean, they had the opportunity to make this more of a warning of social media use in general. And I think that kind of missed the mark. And whether it was that it wasn't written that way or, again, there was just so much missing to this. And you kind of almost needed to see, as I had mentioned, the human behind the keyboard.
Yeah.
Right? You needed to see that there is a world outside of the circle.
We needed to see the circle's impact on society rather than just them talking about the circle's impact on society. I would love to see this book picked up as a series, put it on a streaming service, and really flush it out. Like, I think the concepts are there. I think the pieces are all there. I would love to read the book. So, hey, Dave Eggers, if you want to send us a copy of the book, would absolutely love to read this and the sequel called The Every. But it comes time. I have to put this one on the line. So, Carrie, who is your MVP of The Circle?
Ooh, this is a really, really tough one for me because in my heart of hearts, I really want to vote for Emma Watson. I want to give cred to Hermione. I want to, I definitely want to applaud her performance in this movie, but I'm not going to. I do, but I have to choose Tom Hanks.
Really?
Yep.
I would have thought you would have chosen Emma Watson because I think she was the love of it, but go on.
Tom Hanks, again, I don't know if he just played, the sociopath so well, but I really liked him. I really thought his intentions were pure. His heart was there. I think he may have created this company with all good intentions and wanting to share these experiences in the world with his son. He really wanted the best for his son. He wanted to create a better world, maybe for others, a more friendlier world. A stranger is always a friend that you haven't met yet, right? But with social media, you know everything about everyone before you even meet them. So it's almost kind of like that icebreaker that he's intentionally providing. I liked him so much. He seemed so incredibly friendly and really kind of the boss or the leader that you want to have in your life. Someone who, you can mess up and you can steal a kayak and you can, have a near-death experience, but someone who does have your back truly and is going to be there for you. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he really did genuinely save May's life by unknowingly, it's not like it was intentional, but the cameras that he had planted really did the effect that it had, that it inevitably saved her life.
The cameras created the opportunity. He took the opportunity and then capitalized on the opportunity.
But did it, or did May just realize just how
there's so much
how much
to
of a
that,
good idea this actually is, that when she was in trouble, if those cameras weren't there, she might not have been at work the next day.
Oh, you could absolutely justify what they were doing, but you also then have to, accept the consequences, the lack of privacy, the everything that comes with that as well.
Is it not really? I mean, and in much deeper, there are cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
In society, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it always winds up to be a good thing when, if, a horrific event happens and the police call out to say, if you have any porch cameras or, if you were driving by and you happen to have, a camera in your vehicle, like how many times are they can be seen as invasive, and they can also be a real life-saving tool.
Every movie that has a heist, the first thing a smart criminal does is disable the cameras.
But not if they're everywhere.
Not if they're everywhere.
And if you can't even see them.
And there's the thing too, like there's the part where, May's going on about, how are you when you're being watched? You're on your best, right? But what if you're always being watched? Are you always going to be on your best? Like there's a lot of thought in in The Circle. There's a lot of thought in the story. It needed more time and more breath and more space to be able to tell everyone's story and not just May's. So my MVP, though, as much as I wanted to put Emma Watson as my MVP, because she carries this movie. I think the movie would have not sucked, but it would have been critiqued worse had it been anyone but Emma Watson. And I thought about Karen Gillan as well, because she had a very interesting arc, but her arc wasn't explored as much as it should have been. So for the second episode in a row, I have to agree with you.
Ooh.
I have to say that my wife is right. Tom Hanks is the MVP of this film. Also because I think Tom Hanks is head of the Hollywood Illuminati and will have me taken care of if I don't say he's the MVP. But
Hi, Mr. Hanks.
and we know that Google is listening. So anyways, but
big fan right here.
But it's true. You needed someone in the role of Eamon Bailey who you could understand why people would follow him. Why he's so influential and encouraging and motivating. And there is an altruism in, I think, the base ideas. But with any great idea, you can get carried away and go too far. That's what The Circle is. And at the level that Eamon Bailey plays it, especially in public, because we don't get to see the private Eamon Bailey in this, it's all for the good. But with the good comes consequences, and you have to surrender certain things if you want a utopic society. That's what they're trying to create, regardless of what it takes away from. Again, I really wish this film was a series. I really do. I could go for a 6 or 8 episode run of hour-long episodes of The Circle. I think it would be phenomenal. I think it would be great. And I don't even think it would feel dated, because every year there seems to be some new social app that comes out and everyone's got to jump on it kind of thing. There's just, people are sharing more and more and more, but you also see people retreating from more and more and more. So like there's a give and take from it.
Well, not only that, but I mean, social influencers, right, are very much a thing. And I mean, to be honest, I don't even have a clue. I don't think I know how to use Twitter, but
the only thing about TikTok I know is that's what the sound a clock makes. Okay, so
right, like, but I think there is a lot of social commentary that either needs to be revisited. Mm-hmm. It really does need to be a series, because there needs to be so much more told
absolutely
to this story.
So I truly hope that a streaming service like a Netflix or something like that comes out, re-gets the rights to this book, and gives it the treatment that it deserves, because I think there is more there. I would love for most of the cast to stay the same. Obviously, you would have to recast May's parents, but I would love to see this flushed out much more. I think the story is great. I think Dave Eggers wrote a great story. I'd love to read the book. It needs more than an hour 50.
Do you think this was in the direction, though? You had mentioned at the beginning that, I forget the name, sorry, but it was the same director as Away We Go.
No. It was the same writer. The same writer as Away We Go. No, James Ponsell was the director of the end of the tour. I don't know if it's the director or not, because this is in the screenplay, right? This is in the, in what you can actually put in. Like, I don't know if there's more if there's a longer cut. I don't know how much more they filmed. I know they did do some reshoots, because some of the test screenings had May as being unlikable. I don't get that.
I couldn't see that. That would be just a detriment, because her character carried this movie.
Yeah.
And as we said, there was maybe a little bit too much that there were other characters. I want to leave this podcast and go and read the book.
Yes.
I think I want to dedicate a weekend. I want to find the book. I want to sit and read it. And it leaves me wanting more. So well done and applause because
I would be curious because there's our friends over at the Adapted to Screen podcast. This would be a fascinating book for them to read and then film to watch, and then just the comparisons between the two. So, guys, by all means, hit this one up when you get a chance to. But I think it's a good movie. I think it needs more. It needs to be a series. It's better than 16%. There's no question about that. I think 16%, on the other characters maybe not being flushed out, but I think this is, and I get to the weight of expectation. When I sit there and say, you've got Tom Hanks and the stars of Harry Potter, Star Wars, and Doctor Who, right? Like this is you have phenomenal cast. A phenomenal cast. And I think what was left out of the script and left out from the translation from the book hurt the movie much more than they probably expected. It's a big story and it needs a big treatment. And I don't think a movie is the way to go. Carrie, thank you for watching this movie with me. And to our listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of It's Not That Bad. Now, you guys know the drill. If you think there's a movie that is unfairly maligned, or you think it's so bad that there is no way in heck that we can find anything good to say about it, hop on the circle. Hop on Twitter at Not That Badcast and hit us up, and we will watch it. We will dissect it, and we will find the good things to say because we are looking for those A grades in B movies. Until next time, I'm Jay. She's Carrie. We'll see you later. Take care.
Hey folks, Stefan Shirazi and Renee Richardson here from the Metallica Report.
And we are proud members of the Pantheon podcast family, where the best of music and podcasts unite.
We've got something pretty cool for you. We're giving away an exclusive Metallica merch package worth over $250.
That's a whole lot of Scary Guys, Skulls, M72, and other sought-after Metallica swag. And we've made it easy for you to win. Follow and share the Metallica Report, and you're in the game. Go to pantheonpodcast.com/Metallica, enter your email, and hit that button to be entered to win.
And just like that, you're eligible for our monthly exclusive Metallica merch package.
And guess what, rockers? You can enter every month, so just do it. And while we love our global brothers and sisters, the lawyers won't let us ship outside the U.S.